What do you think about this defund the police movement that spun up out of this?
I think that how you title something can kill it quicker than anything. The great civil rights leader Malcolm X said, "A label can kill you quicker than a bullet." And he talked about, you getting, and we'll talk about convicted felons, all these labels they put on young people of color. But I think what they're saying, and what I want to believe they're saying is we can't just put everything into policing and not put stuff into after school care, not put stuff into mental health awareness and mental health crisis intervention officials and so forth. And so that's what they should have been saying, talking about let's spread the resources out to be community partners versus saying, let's just take all the money from the police budget because they're not doing any good for us. No, we need police. Police have a vital role that they serve in our society. And so you would never hear me saying defund the police. What I will say is how can we reimagine community safety? How can we imagine public safety? That's what we need to be identifying it as.
Well, I've talked to a lot of Black business owners in communities, and they don't want less police. They want their businesses protected. They don't want to be robbed, accosted. They want protection. And they just don't want to be afraid of the people that are protecting them. So, first off, I think defund was the wrong word. Defunding never happened. They may have taken $1 million from this department, but then they spent it in overtime. And if it went down, the whole city budget went down. And now they're talking about refunding. But the whole point to me is you've got to get back to doing two things. One is community relations.
Mm-hmm.
You put officers back on the beat where they're walking the streets and meeting the people and knowing them and shaking their hands and understanding who this young man is and who that young man is and all, then you really have community relations. It's not just some stranger rolling up in a squad car and shooting somebody in 1.5 seconds. Then the other is it's not about taking money away from the police. It's about putting more money into certain areas, because what you say is exactly right. If you put money into mental health, if you put money into the community, there are violence clusters in communities, and it is very clustered. You go into certain neighborhoods, and there might be a 28 square block neighborhood, violence clusters within even 2 or 3 blocks within that neighborhood. That's where all the bad actors are. And you can go in and focus on these micro clusters, and you don't even have to go drop the hammer there. You can go in and talk to those young men and offer them alternatives, give them some choices and some education and help. There's so much that can be done, but you've got to have police for what's happening right now today. If you have a home invasion today, you want a cop to show up today. But this is stuff that can be done that can help 6 months from now and a year from now. We need to do both. We need to have police, and we need to have people working in the neighborhoods, so we don't need so many police.
Yeah, and what you really want is a community partner in the police. For instance, I think what you said about walking the beat, being able to know the people who you are assigned to, that's huge, because I think a lot of it is ignorance of people. You don't know them. But if I knew Arthur, I knew Chris, and I knew their son or their daughter, and I came up on a situation, I'm less likely now to have my guards up that I got to shoot so fast, because no, I've interacted with Arthur and Chris, and we've coached the police athletic league because they used to do those things in the community, and we have to get back to that. I mean, you get to know everybody in the high schools and the middle schools, all those young people, because during the summer, while they're out of school, you come and coach the basketball team or you coach
Exactly.
the, little league football team. And it makes a world of difference because now you got people who really know that young kid and they may stray. I'm not saying that that's the end all, but you have some connection to them that you see them as a person that's worthy to try to invest in versus a person who I see as a menace to society.
Yeah. Well, I've walked the beat with the cops in Washington Heights and in Harlem and New York City, and there'll be a lot of street vendors out there. We walk by one of them and they'll say, "Hey, Officer Nelson, Jackson just ran by here and stole 2 bottles of orange juice." And they walk another half block and there'll be Jackson sitting there and they say, "Hey, get your butt up and take those back down there." It's not about putting them in jail. It's not about arresting them. I mean, the guy's suffering from some mental
Yeah.
problems. Get up and take those back down there and leave her alone. It's solved right there.
Yep.
It's not about arresting, putting him in jail, increasing incarceration. They solve it right there and say, "Don't make me come back down." "Okay, I'm sorry," and it's over.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you know everybody and you're walking the beat.
And I think, Dr. Phil, the solution can't always to pull my gun and shoot.
No.
I mean, that's what I struggle with. So many times you see these. There was one in San Bernardino, Rob Adams, the kid running away again, and you like, man, why shoot? It's all on video. Like, why do you have to shoot? Why is that the solution every time?
And if you're a cop, why would you do that? Because you know this is on video.
And that's the thing. And I don't want to get too political, but you think about the great restraint they showed on January 6th. Just great restraint. Man, why can't black people ever get some of that kind of consideration?
Yeah. Yeah, you would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, hey, I have to say this because I wouldn't be being Ben Crump if I didn't, Dr. Phil. Can you imagine if that was Black Lives Matter on January 6th?
Yeah, no, that'd be a different situation, wouldn't it?
Oh, man, they would have shot so many people.
Do you think it's fear and ignorance of just not knowing the culture, not knowing the people?
I think it's what you said first and foremost. Fear. The people playing on our fear, the least common denominator amongst us. They want to look at not what brings us together, but what keeps us separated. And they play on that fear for whatever reasons. It don't make sense to me why people will let themselves be manipulated by some Spengali who's just keep saying, "Oh, you can't let people be equal because that means it's gonna be worse for you." Nah, why can't we try to say Jesse Jackson used to always say this. He said that they said when they were talking about integrating baseball, they said, well, if we let blacks and Hispanics come into Major League Baseball, it would bring down the quality of the game. When Reverend Jackson said the reality was we didn't know how good baseball could be until we let everybody play the game.
You know, I grew up in athletics because we were really poor, and that was my currency. That's how I fit in. It was athletics. And all of the teams that I played on were half black, half white. And that's how I got to know the different races. It took away all the mystery. And I just think that's such an important part of just interacting and getting to know. It took away all the mystery. There was no fear, and it was two ways. It absolutely took it away from a very early age.
Yeah, and I want to go back, Dr. Phil. You asked me something before. You said, what do you think is the thing we should do, a possible solution? And Arthur and Chris and I, we were at a panel, people on my team, because it's always a team effort, and I always want to tell people it's never I, it's we. It's not Ben Crump, it's a whole team of us. And we were at a panel discussion, and I heard a young man say something profound. He said there was a book called Upstream. And he said that the gist of the book is this. You had this black guy walking along downriver, just walking, and he saw this young black kid in the river screaming and going under, drowning. And he jumped in the river and he saved his life. And he said, man, I'm happy I was there to save this young black child's life. And he said as soon as he settled himself, he saw another black kid, a second black kid, screaming out in the river, and he was yelling for help, and he was going under, drowning, and he jumped in the river, and he saved that kid's life. And then he said, I was happy I was there because this kid would have drowned had I not been there. As soon as he was patting himself on the back, Dr. Phil, he said he heard a third young black kid in the river screaming and asking for help and coming down river. He jumped in the river and he saved that kid. And then he said, what the hell I want to know is who keep throwing all these black kids in the river? And he said, we can't wait to be dealing with the issue downstream. We got to go upstream and prevent them from throwing so many of the black kids in the river. And so the key is prevention and all these social ills, whether it's policing, mass incarceration, whatever. We got to try to deal with the problems before they get downstream.
What a great way to say it.
Yeah.
What a great way to say it.